So, Pranam to all, good evening. And we are gathering today in our last Q&A of this season here. And since this Q&A continues non-stop, you have to be very specific not to last Q&A, because tomorrow we have another activities. We have been announcing a little bit shift because originally there was circle sharing today that has been moved to tomorrow. We have quest and exploration today, inviting open inquiry, open doubts, open questions, open everything, and together exploring what needs to be explored. So, Mudayanta Parasparam. Let's enlighten one another by sincere presence and sincere longing. Question is a form of longing. And questions is a way of demonstrating what we are longing for. Longing is not just like I'm feeling this and I'm like dying in separation, or can be a burning question that, or a burning theme, or a burning exploration. Not that burning either. There can be levels of burning, levels of longing. Well, longing is a fire, so questions have some flame within it, some exploration, some flame is there. And we need to shed further light on the flame, paradoxically. To increase the fire, basically, increase the light and the warmth and the burning as well. Some stuff needs to be burned. Ashes to ashes. So, nice fire, nice warmth, but lots being burned at the same time. The more something is burned, the more the fire increases. So that's it. Anyone is invited, whomever you would like to share something. Sam, it's the first one.
So when what Rabindra and I were talking about, when Jagat Bharat, he goes into the body of a deer, doesn't he?
Who?
Jagat Bharat?
No, that's Bharata Maharaja.
Yeah.
Jada Bharat comes after the deer.
Oh, right.
Let's get the sequence right. Part 1, part 2, and part 3. Bharata Maharaj, deer, Jada Bharat. That's the answer to the question.
I'm just wondering if there's like him going into the body of a deer that has like a deep meaning there. That's what I mean. The deer, the form of the deer, and what it could represent. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I don't want to just say no, like bluntly, but to my knowledge, there has been no particular elaboration on. Of course, one could say, by why a deer? And we would say, well, because he was attached to a deer. If it would have been a puppy, he may have been born as a puppy, so it was not so much about the particular species in which he was born by, what attachment can bring forth. That's the main point. So I've never heard any commentator or sadhu saying it was specifically the deer because the deer represents this in this particular. And personally also, as much as I like to, we can draw lessons and symbol and meaning. Also, sometimes it's good not to force. Okay, but we have let's create something out of the deer. That's fine. There are like enough lessons in that lila for us to feel like press or forced to have to even read the deer archetypically. Okay. So yeah, basically, of course, as we know, the situations that he I mean, I will say that the main moral, there are many, but one is he saw a baby deer. Her mom had died, so he took pity on the baby deer and he took care of it, but to the point that he neglected his spiritual culture. So the idea is sometimes we may have very good reasons that still can become a way of neglecting our topmost priority. We can engage in very noble activities. I'm taking care of a baby deer, and the whole world will be like, "Oh, how cute!" But if the result of that is like I'm like losing sight of my actual priority in life is not to take care of a cute baby deer. It's not that I'm against baby deers. It's just that that's not the sum of substance of existence, right? So the idea I will say in that regards is that, no, like sometimes you may not have like the grossest form of degradation on earth. It may be a pretty sad big thing. I'm saving a baby deer and taking care of it. And again, there's place for that if that happens, but not at the cost of. That's kind of of the idea, because sometimes that can happen. No? We may be leading a very sattvic life, noble life, and many of sorts and values, but in a subtle way, it may be a form of self-deception. Self-deception doesn't come necessarily in the most gross, overt way. It can come in a very elegant way, very noble, very dharmic, very sattvic. Something that for other people will be a clear improvement in their life. Like if someone is a serial killer and now is a baby deer saver, it's like, great. Oh, we are moving somewhere. But for some other people, what is progress for another is stagnation for that person. So sometimes we have to be careful because, again, if we want to be tricked by self-deception, you always find some excuse of like, no, I'm saving a baby deer. Look, all these people saving baby deer, so I'm adding to the cause. But that may not be your dharma, so to say. For them, it's necessary and great and healing and whatever. And for you, maybe spiritual bypassing. So, and each of us have our baby deer. It's not a baby deer necessarily. It can be anything. It doesn't necessarily even to be an animal or no. It can be. The question is, what's my baby deer? No, baby cat. It can be anything. Again, it can be anything. It can be anything. Things that we know, how to say, they pass in society as nice and morally acceptable and even morally praiseworthy. But in the depths of my heart, I know I'm ready to change shoes, right? I'm ready to move to a bigger shoe. It's starting like to. Well, I would say that's the main idea, no? And not, but I've never heard anything about the deer specifically. Of course, the deer is baby deer. I mean, the deer in itself is like a symbol of cuteness. No? Like, oh, you told me today a deer passed here. I was no longer here, but I assume everyone's attention, all the conversations were. Imagine if it was a baby deer. You break the windows. Like sometimes I joke with people, if I'm giving a class now, if someone enters with a human baby, my class is over. Right? That's like, right. So the baby deer is kind of a symbol of something that is very attractive in its tenderness, in its cuteness, but still it can be I want to say a trap, because it's not that the baby deer is bad in itself, but we can trick ourselves by something so cute, so cute. But behind the cuteness, sometimes we may be escaping, I don't know, deeper responsibility, deeper commitment, deeper sacrifice, deeper whatever. Deeper entering into learning zone and living comfort zone. Baby deer sounds like comfort zone. Right? I'm in my baby deer room. Like, okay. I don't think baby deers challenge you that much. No? An interesting thing, again, if you want to play a little bit of a symbol with the baby deer, is that because the story says first was the baby deer, and again, so tender, so fragile, so cute. But then as the narrative goes, like Bharata Maharaj kind of falls madly in love with the baby deer, something like that. And at one point, the baby deer, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. No, now it's worse because it's over there. Eventually, may be needed, but that's a good thing. So at first, the baby deer was in need, but Bharat Maharaj took care of it, everything. But then the attachment came, and then he needs me. No, his life depends on me. This type of patterns that, okay, I need to be there 24/7. Who knows what may happen? No? So the whole development of identity more and more intensified the savior complex, right? I need to be there to save everyone, save the family, to keep mom and dad united, to save the life. So you have to be there. You have to. And at one point, the baby deer grows enough, sees another deer, says like, "Okay, go Haribol and go." That's it. Like that. No farewell letter or anything. Oh, and Bharat Maharaj goes crazy, and that's how he dies eventually in that birth before becoming a deer. And so also that's kind of the symbol, if you will. Okay, baby deer, cuteness of still self-centered identity, and at one point that would seem cute, leaves you unexpectedly, and if you were deeply attached to that, be ready for suffering like crazy. That's if you want to use the deer as a symbol. Why the deer? Why the baby deer? And something very like attractive in a very like cute way, not attractive in a perverse, no, evil way, apparently non-exploitative way. I'm taking care, saving, but eventually the taking care and the saving starts to become attachment. So the baby deer starts to like to define my identity, no? And I eventually start to use the baby deer, though I'm taking care outside. Yeah, I take care of you, but you define who I am. You give me a sense of identity. I am your savior. I am, and then when it goes, like who I am now. I have no identity left. The baby deer one, like I'm going crazy. I have an existential crisis. Boom. He died like that, and then he took a birth of a deer to make this point, right? Like attachment. Your identity is based on your attachments, as we were talking the other day. Who you are attached, what you are attached to, that defines your sense of identity. That's why, as we said the other day, when you enter the stage of asakti in bhakti, the stage of spiritual attachment, that's the dawn of your spiritual identity. Because identity is based on attachment. So how it works both in the conditioned state and in the enlightened state. In a Sakti, spiritual attachment, I get a substantial attachment to Bhagavan in a particular form and mood of relationship. So correspondingly, my identity, spiritual identity emerges. So indirectly, this story of Bharata Maharaja is saying that. And I say, okay, you become extremely attached into some direction, you derive identity through that attachment, you become that identity. You become that attachment. It's kind of simplifying the math, but it's kind of like that. So, and again, it's just about learning to be attached in the proper direction. Of course, in order to perform certain duties, you need to be attached to some degree. Not like, I don't know, if you're a mom, you have to be attached to your identity as a mother to take care of your baby. If not, it won't work. And you will be attached to your baby, and the baby will give you an identity as a mother, as a father. It's healthy, no? Because if not, we go to the extreme of detachment from family and relationships, and it's all temporary, and you get married, but you're already marked in the calendar when you're taking vanaprastha, right? No, 25 years, no more. Well, then I'm going to the forest. Like, wow, great start. It won't last long. But the art then is how to identify enough to fulfill your responsibilities without letting those identities, those roles, let's be honest, that's a role, like replace your actual identity. To be a mother, son, father is a role. It's not my permanent identity. It's not that I will be always a man, a woman, a son, a father. That's shifting. Again, this is Bhakti 101. But we need to explain in a healthy way. It's not like, oh, here comes the sannyasi now to smash everyone's attachments. No. Also, that's true. I mean, we cannot just forget that. As much as we need to identify to some degree with, in order to perform our dharma and roles properly, we need to be detached enough. So when the moment comes to release those roles, we are ready to honorably discharge them. If not, it's like the soldier who goes to war and becomes so engrossed with the identity of war, and there he's back from war, and he has PTSD from the war. And unless they honorably discharge that identity and realize it's over, I'm no longer that, they're still living in the battlefield. So first comes they may need a ritual, they may need a ceremony to, okay, this was me, now this is not me. I move forward. So similar with, in one sense, any role. So again, all that symbolized by the story of Bharata Maharaja, much more, but yeah. Know if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baby dear. Contradicting all my statements. It was next time you see a baby deer. And it was funny because I remember it was like, a few years ago, I think we were with Tamal Krishna, a friend in the US, and we were at his house in Alachua, and somehow some deers appear, and a baby deer appear. And the two of us were like joking, like, watch out, don't look in that direction. Of course, we looked and it was cute, but we were like, but don't watch too much. I can imagine many stories like that. Some devotees, after reading like the baby deer becomes worse than a dragon, or like the worst possible the monster. Becomes a baby deer. And again, the idea is also that you can get attached to anything. No, it's not just the baby deer. Each person has its own like flavor of attachment. So some person can become attached to whatever, a car, a baby deer, a t-shirt, a house, hair, having hair, not having hair. I don't, I'm sure there are way more ridiculous ideas, with all respect. And you can really fully derive identity from that. So once your hair starts to fall out, down also. You feel your identity is being taken away from you. So what am I now? I'm an existential crisis because I have less hair in this section or whatever. Or white hair is coming, and I need to dye my hair, I need to wear a wig, or I need to. And I'm not condemning anyone. I'm not trying to say that with understanding and compassion, but also knowing that there's some identity we are deriving from those things. So then, but we should know we cannot depend on something that will be here by gone tomorrow to derive identity. That's very fragile way of walking through life. My identity depends on having hair on my head, whatever, right? On baby deer. No, it has to be grounded in something way more solid. No? And yeah, hair may come and go, deers may come and go, everything will come and go, literally. And while there comes again, we are honoring, no need to reject this is bad, this again, mundane, horrible. Everything is energy of Krishna, but it's passing. It's like a river. So I honor the river. I cannot just capture the river. It's fast and beautiful. Bye, river. It's beautiful. Bye, river. The moment you want to capture, to freeze it, it loses its charm. Its anxiety sets in. The moment you can just allow it to flow for what it is and appreciate it and be grateful, that's great. You're not trying to own it. But for that, you need to have your own sense of identity to some degree solidified, because if not, you will just go through life trying to derive identity from anything and everything. From anything and everything. And that may be for different reasons, and in whatever the reason, we need to solve that, because if not, it will be complicated. And in relationship will be just like, give me identity. The other person's like, whoa, you're sucking out my life. Or to an animal, or to anything. I have to hoard stuff in my house, or have 40 cars, or because I'm deriving, the more I have, the more it's very fragile actually. So that's why it's important to learn to develop some solid sense of I am, sattva, beingness. Sattva means that. Sat means being, and tva means ness. So sattva means beingness. So I'm satisfied with being who I am. I don't need to be like clinging onto stuff and people to derive an identity. I am. That's the foundation for, that's Sat. Then we can talk about Chit and Ananda, but you have to be at peace with Sat. And then you will be at peace living, and you will be at peace dying. Because the moment of relinquishing this body, it's not just relinquishing this body, but so many other things that I consider pertaining to the body, extensions of the body, the family, the home, the country, and the identity. So the body is just a symbol for a constellation of potential attachments that we need to, while living, learn to coexist with them like soberly. When it's time to go, thank you for accompanying me on the journey. Safe travels. It's possible, my friends. It's possible. You are very serious now. It's a serious topic. And again, as we always say, we do not need to throw the baby away with the bathwater. So no, I heard all those things from day one, but that traumatized me. Yeah, but we are trying to continue to talk about those things in a non-traumatizing way, if that has been the case. It's not that, okay, I will take with me to my next lifetime my chadar or whatever, my favorite pair of shoes. So that's a fact. So we cannot just change that fact to please the audience. That will be like compromising our integrity. So. Teresa, you want to add something?
Yes. Well, it seems like that our identity is so tied to feeling lovable, and if we don't feel lovable as we are, then we seek all of those other things to fortify our identity that will then make us lovable. It seems like identity is really tied in with feeling lovable or not lovable.
Yeah, I was going to say probably with feeling unlovable.
Yeah.
Because many times, because I feel unlovable, I have this like never-ending need to add things. Because the narrative is I'm not enough. So I need to add things, whether it is person, possession, things, to add thinking, yeah, that will make me more somehow. That will make me like me more, whatever is the unconscious myth. But yeah, once we learn to accept ourselves for who we are, that's why we need to know who we are. And when you know who you are, actually, it's easy to accept yourself. Because many times you don't accept yourself because the idea you have of yourself is unacceptable. So it's good that you cannot accept yourself. The problem is that you think that's you. So many ideas we entertain about ourselves are truly unacceptable. And that's why intuitively we cannot fully accept that, but still we think we are that. So we need to receive a revelation that, oh, this is what you are, something fully acceptable, to say the least, something fully believable, because we think you are in the conditioned state is unbelievable in a negative sense, no? Because we say unbelievable for good also. So who we are is unbelievable for good. Who we think we are is unbelievable for in the bad sense. No? So yeah, we need to bring some coherence to how we choose to define ourselves. So we have to learn to see ourselves in ways that, yeah, you can sit with yourself and be okay. As simple as that is. You can sit on a chair and don't need to have things, do things, depending the case. And some people it's just about getting things, another is about doing things, producing, earning, deserving, impressing. Some other people it's about getting other people to think things about them in a certain way. So it's building a character that may be agreeable to the world while internally they hate themselves. So none of that works. Human havings, human doings, human impressings, impressing others. I mean, building to impress others. Hey, please, would they like my post or something? So we need to be a human being. We have to be okay with being who you are. And that's right there at the beginning of the Gita, right? When Krishna says, "You better do what you have to do wrong." That, in other words, the idea is we can translate it literally: perform your dharma imperfectly. That's better than performing someone else's dharma imperfectly. But essentially, he's saying you better be who you are than try to be anyone else. Be who you are with all the messiness that entails, than trying to imagine a perfect other that you will never be able to be. Start there. That's basically the Gita's non-neurotic advice. Yeah. And again, we have to understand all the things are like kind of preliminary. They're not like the super high Raja Vidya Raja Guhyan we're talking today in the morning. This is more like preliminary human mental health, which I'm not downplaying. It's just I'm just saying it's crucial to have that in place first, and not thinking, oh no, I have to practice bhakti and become a pure devotee, and then I will be mentally balanced. No, probably not. So come to some good dose of sattva, of balance, and then embrace. Then, not necessarily first this, but have some foundation of balance while starting your bhakti project. Don't use bhakti project to escape the unresolved human. That's not what bhakti is for. That's an insult to bhakti. In one sense, it's weaponizing bhakti to keep escaping, to keep evading what needs to be integrated. Okay. All that about the baby deer. Radha Priya was raising her hand a little bit ago. Let's go back to baby deer.
Something about the baby deer because of Sita. She also fell in love with the baby.
Yeah.
It's quite traumatic.
Yeah, it didn't end up well, this story, right? Yeah, I will say that in general, what I mentioned before, like mainly in Indian imagination, so to say, the deer is kind of a symbol of beauty or something like attractive and bewitching, no? Enchanting. So sorry.
I said, although we don't have many of them in India.
Yeah, probably you had. And because of this type of emphasis on how enchanting deers are, now you don't have many. And if a deer in itself is enchanting, alluring, again, baby deer is multiplies the equation. So again, not to try to justify Bharata Maharaja's distraction. He was so attractive. Come on. And of course, he was in a very advanced stage. Right? There are many other things. I don't want to digress much there, but commentators explain there. Bharat Maharaj was the stage of Bhava Bhakti. That's pretty advanced. So it's kind of an extreme example to show, even if you're very advanced, that doesn't mean that you can just rest in your advancement. Well, I'm very advanced. I'm beyond that Nishta, Ruchi, all those guys who are still over there. I'm in Bhava Bhakti. Still, you have not attained Prem. Still, there is some slight possibility of again, not to be neurotic and like at every moment you can fall down, nothing like that, but also don't take everything for granted. No? Remain humble and don't neglect your cultivation. So the whole point is you can be very advanced, but that doesn't mean you cannot be distracted. No? It doesn't mean that, again, at the end, happy end to the story of Bharata Maharaj, and it's not like he lost everything and everything was in vain. He just had a dear detour. But so nothing is lost in that sense, bhakti wise, but still there can be some detour. And if you want the detour, okay, fine for you. But if you don't want it, then it's one has to be attentive. No, and again, attentive is not so much to the dangers outside, the tests of Maya, the test of Krishna. The devotees sometimes have this great capacity to think everyone is testing them. That's why conspiratorial. Rather than own your case and be responsible, and I have just to have introspection, self introspection, self observation about the many ways I can deceive myself. I don't need to blame anyone in the environment. As Marshall said, the environment is friendly. The baby deer is friendly. If you get overtly attached to the baby deer, that's you not being friendly. Attached enough to take care of it, that's okay. Legal friendship. Overly attached, that starts to be a form of violence. You start to own the person, you start to suck identity from the person, whatever. Though externally looks so cute, that's a form of abuse. Subtle. So, yeah.
A different question now, but
No problem.
So, like in relation to the class this morning and verse, we were talking about how Krishna likes to be controlled by his dearest devotees. Like it seems like this like aspect of being controlled. It's like this feminine principle, like rather than like controlling would be masculine and all of that. So it seems to me that excessively masculine society, we somehow entertain this idea of a God who is controlling and not want to be controlled. Yeah, and I was also thinking that for Krishna, in some ways, it looks like he has sorry, he has devotees who,
making Krishna a historical figure.
Yeah, so for Krishna, he has devotees who he can like just rely on to, in a sense, to fully lose control, where he can trust, to do that, basically be that vulnerable and everything. But it's not necessarily the case with us, like we don't always, we often, like you talk about like being in relationship and being challenged and this and that, but that also can like break our trust and make us like close ourselves more And yeah, it's not so often that we find like, people are like, the environment that's like safe to, to open ourselves to like, entertain more the idea of like losing control or being controlled rather than, controlling, something like that. So like, yeah, this seems it's not easy, like
Never say it's easy.
it's like a conflicting idea in my head almost, like, so just wondering, like, how do you kind of then move forward when you kind of come across situations of people again and again where you feel like you can't trust.
Yes, I say I never say it's easy. I don't like that word. So yeah, of course it's not easy. Also, I wouldn't say it so much like Krishna likes to be controlled. I would say more like Krishna likes love, his love, and control is kind of the consequence of falling in love with his devotees. No? So as I say, his favorite qualities, he's the lover of his lovers. And by the love he received, he becomes control as a consequence, but it's not so much like, I like to be controlled. No? Because it sounds a little bit like dysfunctional. Right? Yes. I like to be controlled. I like to control dysfunctional. I like to be controlled the other side of the coin. He loves love. And there's a natural mutual control that happens by love, but it's not like one is controlling the other. Love is controlling both. It's not so much like I'm controlling you or you are controlling me. We are being controlled by love. And again, even the word control, we have to be careful in what that's triggering in our contemporary postmodern Western imagination. No? So we may need another word, but it's not control, and it's fine. But to give analogies that may convey something healthy and something that inspires us to pursue that, rather than I don't want to be controlled. Because for some good reasons, we may not want to be controlled in the negative ways of being controlled. But if you are just being, I have to say, possessed by some muse, by some higher spirit. I don't know, imagine you are an artist or you're a musician, and at one point you feel like you are there, it's you are having the experience, but you are being possessed in the good sense of the term. That can be another triggering word, right? I have to be careful with my analogies. But you are being like taken over by some powerful energy or whatever that is very inspiring, very fulfilling, very humbling at the same time. And you are like, wow. And still you are you. It's not that you lost yourself, you lost your identity. It's you having the experience, you choosing to be taken by that wave, you being controlled by that. So in that sense, we speak about being controlled by love. Yeah, like a mom and a baby, to go back to an example. We were given that example with Krishna and Yashoda the other day, right? When we were speaking about the milk boiling and the milk watching. Mom and boy and baby looking at each other, and one controlling the other. Again, it's not that they want to control each other. It's not like just I want to control and manipulate my son. And it's not that Krishna is thinking any of that either. Just by the sheer love they have for one another, both are like captive. So that's what we mean by control, right? So translating that to our relationships, of course, yes, we are not in Golok Vrindavan. We are not. I'm talking for me. I don't want to talk for you. I'm not a pure lover of God, nor anyone. So it's aspirational, big part of this. So I use that word almost every class just to put in context what we're talking about. Is maybe aspirational. It may be aspirational. It's not something like, okay, guys, weekend for next weekend, already you should be like fully upgrading these ideals in your life. So maybe you came yesterday and you didn't hear too many times that I say aspirational the other mornings. But yeah, it's not easy. It's a gradual process. And we need to, of course, two things come to my mind. One is, of course, being careful and selective about whom we trust. In the beginning, when we don't have that much of a strong heart to tolerate betrayal, because there's people who have gone through many things and they develop a big resilience in a good way, and they won't be devastated by any of that, because also they can understand from where the betrayal is coming from. So they are not thinking it was personal, they're not thinking it was evil, they're not thinking, I think it was someone acting out of ignorance for whatever unresolved stuff, and they see that with understanding and compassion. So still may hurt. It's not like they will organize a party to celebrate it, but they will deal with that in a way that they end up being enriched by that. So the more you mature in that direction, yeah, still, acknowledge there may be some risk in opening myself to this person, to this relationship, but they have enough foundation to be okay with the reality of that potential risk. But for some other people, which they may feel like, no, I'm still in a too fragile situation to that. It feels too risky. One may need to be way more discerning and way more selective and in how one relates and opens. Not overly calculative, but yeah, be careful. But at the end, hopefully, it means being responsible also to acknowledge. Yeah, at the end of the day, there's no evil people out there. Like Patrick Woodhouse was saying yesterday, people are, and nobody's evil in nature. They're just in ignorance. So if I happen to do something with someone, there was betrayal, there was something, I have to grow and learn from that. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all, I'm sorry if this sounds too demanding from Swami Padmanabha, but aspirationally, we all need to grow and we all need to become pure lovers. That may take 10 lifetimes and it's okay, but we cannot dilute the ideal. So the ideal is, I cannot wait for the whole world to be absolutely trustworthy before I open my heart to them, so they don't disappoint me. Because it's a form of victimhood to do that. Like, unless I'm completely sure that everyone is trustworthy and will never betray me and everyone has the higher standard, I'm not trusting anyone. Like that doesn't work like that. You're not doing your work by saying that. You're just like, so one needs to work in a sustainable way according to one's capacity to become a better lover and a better, and in between, yeah, there may be risk, there may be betrayal, there may be mistakes. That's how you learn unconditional love. If not, it's fully conditional. If not, it's just filled with conditions all over. And the more conditions we put, the less love it becomes anytime. And again, I'm not saying all this like putting a super high bar and we need to be there tomorrow, but still we have to keep that ideal in sight. And not being naive, of course, not being cynical either. Knowing it's not easy, and hopefully drawing inspiration from more mature lovers. That's sadhu sangha. Hopefully also that I look company of more mature lovers. That by the way they live their life, they are teaching me that, that new level of love that I'm not there yet, and they are there. They are by they living in that level of love. That's giving me some fearlessness to walk to that. It's okay. It's scary for me, it's terrifying for me, but by witnessing people living into that level, okay, I'm not so terrified now. I'm even attracted, I'm even called gradually. Because if not, we live, and I know it can happen, but we don't want that to happen. We can live our whole life afraid. Right, fear still is the driving force. Oh, I may be betrayed here. Oh, I may be abused here. Oh, this may be have. And I don't know if I will try. I don't know if what will happen in the future. Anything and everything can happen. And we should gradually, again, I'm not imposing anything on anyone, but we should, our dharma, our duty, our function, our nature is to become strong enough to navigate life no matter what, and be a beacon of hope. And you may say, well, that's not me, I'm not there yet. Okay, but because you are not there yet, doesn't mean you are not meant to be there yet, to be there at some point. And what you are doing today to be there at some point, that's sadhana. What I'm doing today to be there at some point. So, I don't know if I'm addressing the topic some way.
I was thinking, I guess it does depend on one's capacity, because some can just forgive and not even see anything, and it really depends on where we are and our unresolved stuff.
Of course,
like that.
Of course.
And also, I was thinking, in Krishna's pastimes, it's like Krishna is kind of betraying like Sri Radha in like different situations where like Radha gets mad.
I wouldn't call that betraying.
No, not like I don't mean betraying, like like hurting, where he, like in situations like he would go to Chandravali or something, and then
Chandravali is an expansion of Radha.
Yeah, but in the past times, isn't it like still like seen as so that experience of where Sri Radha is still continuing to love and going through pain and all that. So
yeah, but that's the pain and all the things she goes through is categorically different from our experience here.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it like relatable in any sense that like does it transform or it's completely different and we cannot?
I mean, I would say it's
that.
I would say in one sense we should be very careful not to compare both situations, because everything that happens in those exchanges is only increasing love. So in our case, probably that's not the case. Sometimes even when we are not suffering, we are not increasing love. And then when even they are suffering, they're increasing love. That's a very different world. One second, and in one sense it's relatable in the sense, okay, there's suffering there's pain. Hey, I have suffering, I have pain. So it's relatable to that point to say there is a type of suffering in the spiritual world. That's as much relatable as that is. Then when you start to explore the nature of that, you can see this is another world apart. It's a field with bliss and increasing love, and it may be difficult for us to understand the beginning, and that's why it's important to be careful not to project, because let's be honest, we tend to project all the time, and without being bad people, just if we don't have any other point of reference, we cannot but make it self-referential. But again, it's a gradual process to understand how the dynamics of this case, Radha and Krishna, or any lila, the lila in general, is the nourishment of love. So in that sense, the relatability is okay. Whatever happens there is nourishing their love. Okay, how to live my life here in that way? How to nourish love through whatever I'm going through, which may not be the same thing. Again, may not be, I'm not in the lila yet. So how can I derive love from whatever I'm going through? And that's a very demanding task. That's not easy.
Yeah,
But it's demanding. Yeah, I mean, we are not here for something cheap or easy. It's easy in one sense, as Krishna said. Yeah, this joyfully susukam kartum. I don't want to sound like contradicting what we said the other day. One side, bhakti is very easy and very by nature, bhakti is easy. It's not easy for us because there are so many things that get in the way from our side, not from bhakti. Bhakti is not making it difficult for us. We are the difficult ones. Bhakti by nature is natural, it's easy, it's beautiful. If we experience that's very difficult, we should take, we should be introspective and say, okay, what in me is making it difficult? Again, what with toxic guilt, not with like overburdening, overburnt, but taking responsibility. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was thinking if in the situations, if we are like looking inside and seeing why we feel the pain and like addressing that, and then that could bring us like closer to love, like in that sense, you know. That's how I was trying to equate that, or like relate.
Because by proper understanding of why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, hopefully there is understanding, hopefully there is compassion, hopefully there is acceptance toward me and toward others as well. And that's important also, because sometimes we go only one direction or the other. And I don't know, I'm going through a situation with someone who is, I mean, I'm not saying that's something that's happening, I'm just giving an example. And there is some betrayal or whatever, and I'm invited to have understanding and self-compassion, self-understanding, why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. That's a form of love, and extend that to the other person as well, and that's also a form of love. So yeah. Seriousness, dead serious.
I was sometimes thinking about, we've been talking about Krishna and this reciprocation with us, with his devotees, how he loves to reciprocate. And now we can see that in different times and places, like now, we have all these books, all these shastras easily available. We can nourish that desire we have, Krishna. But yet, we were talking last night about Vicky Wilson. And back in that time, when we would think, that'd be a great time to have all the books around and everything, but they weren't around. In fact, they were fighting over like one copy that made it through Russia or something. And then, either I can see that either you put that in the category of it's just inconceivable, it's Krishna's way on all of us, that, because the soul is eternal in one sense, there's as much eternity just means there's many lives as it takes, it doesn't really matter in one level. But another, it's like, could it be, I thought some speculative ideas could it be that at this time in the world, perhaps there are so many devotees who really, really needed to get closer with Krishna, to understand it more deeply, that Krishna reciprocated, and so the knowledge became all available. Or perhaps it's a time Krishna's like more advanced devotees were available to come into the world to make it all possible. I was wondering if you think along those lines, or is it best to leave it as it's all Christmas now, it's all inconceivable. There is ultimately nobody dies, or in the process the soul is eternal. It could be another lifetime is another lifetime, perhaps. I
mean, you are mentioning that in the context of the Holocaust?
Well, just
Or in general?
Comparison is with now, comparing now to
Ah,
the time.
okay.
before.
Yeah, I would say, of course, there's. I mean, in one sense, Krishna is always available. And when I say Krishna or devotees or books available, I don't want also to limit it to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right?
No.
Because it may be a little bit too. So the divine is available, the knowledge is available somehow or other. For those, I mean, the case of Etihilasam itself proves that, because she had no, and she was born Jewish, but she was not particularly religious or spiritual overtly. Of course, she loved to read, and eventually she became a mystic, I will say, but without any like training, you know, in the sense of, okay, now read this book, get this knowledge, go know God. But life took her to God, you know, and she found herself kneeling down in the bathroom and praying and finding the deepest intimacy she experienced in her whole life. And it didn't happen with any particular like introduction to a path by a certain priest or Swami or book, and do, but she had that desire, and it was fulfilled, it was facilitated. So that's for me one example that is there, you know? And if we are there, it's there. And of course there will be circumstances where in one place or another, I don't know, religious books are banished, or books are not as available as now, or technology was not available as whatever. And we can always find like a new question, but why in 1927 in Cambodia the books were, we could always like find like a, we will say in Spanish, the fifth leg to the cat. No, like, oh, but this and why that, that's like, there's no fifth leg to the cat. You don't have that in English, right?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, in Spanish will say that like, you're looking for the fifth leg in the cat. I'm not saying you are doing that. I'm saying we can go there and just always.
Hundreds, thousands of years of disappointments in those Abrahamic religions, perhaps, you know, and it's left. Yeah, the intelligent person, like you say, will find a way. They will find God, but it's a rare person that does that. The masses of people that being disappointed in some way with the religion, but there's that desire as a group of souls, like to know more. So therefore, Krishna comes in.
I mean, the principle is that if you have a sincere desire to know God, you will know God, and God will guide. And like many times, we were talking with whom? Oof, few people I talked the last few weeks. Probably was with Krishna Chandra in Switzerland, about like, okay, if someone wants guidance and they would like to know God, but they have no clue where to go, or they have no access, whatever may be the circumstance. Each circumstance is very unique. And I think he asked his Gurudev, Prahlada Maharaja, and he said, oh, if you pray fervently for guidance, you will be guided somehow or other. I mean, he didn't say it will happen in this way. No, you will receive a book in your mailbox, or you'll find a pure devotee next weekend. Maybe something coming deeply inside of you. And we have many stories to justify each one of those cases, you know, like that some almost like miraculous, like I prayed and this happened. And it doesn't mean that everyone who prays will happen in that way, but will happen. That's the principle. Like if you genuinely looking for God, there will be a way in which God will visit you, so to say, manifest in your life. But speaking about the masses, in one sense, the masses are, in one sense, not looking for God. Of course, they are looking for God in the sense that they are looking for something that can only be fulfilled there. So very indirectly they are looking for God, but most people is not that interested. Let's be honest. Like Krishna himself says in the Gita again, for many people, just a few approach me. And then he comes up, from those who approach me, just a few actually are interested in me. And from those who are interested in me, just not so many of them are willing to pay the price of what it means to enter into a full relationship with me. He says that with a sense of I don't know how to say, sadness. Like in play, I'm so interested in everyone, but me, not so many are interested. I mean, he has enough good self-esteem. He's not getting depressed. He's just making a fact, you know. So yeah, I would say the access to the divine is always available for those who really want it. There's no like limitations, so to say. God is super resourceful. And if we are super sincere, looking for someone super resourceful, the combination will prove fruitful. So whatever form it takes, and of course, if in whatever way we can facilitate that to people who are genuinely looking for that, that's also desirable and welcome. But yeah, I will say, and everyone, again, as you say, everyone has also their own choice. I don't want to say their own karma and use the word karma in a very reductionistic way, but people made their choices, and that creates a momentum to live their lives in certain ways. And as you say, they also want this lifetime not to sound, of course, insensitive to this lifetime, but also not to be overtly attached to that chapter of the eternal movie of existence. It's not like one lifetime is just defining the trajectory of everyone. Or even if someone lived a tragic life and a not very enlightened life, that's not the end of the story. Like, how many of those we lived? We lost count. We have no clue. Thank God I have no clue. Imagine if suddenly you are made aware of all those lifetimes. That's too much. So forgetfulness is a kind of grace also in that sense. And here we are, despite who knows what. So we have the proving testimony that, okay, I'm here now, despite who knows what. So that somehow confirms that if I'm here, even despite the things I know from this lifetime, we'll speak of the who knows what from previous. Anyone can be here also. But there has to be some investment of the will, as we talk these days. Love at the end of the day is voluntary. So. Have time? Yeah. Patra.
I'm very interested in your thoughts about saranagati, surrender. And the question is a pretty straightforward, easy one, I think. How can I practice, how can I understand, practice, and live saranagati in a sustainable, healthy way in everyday life?
Okay, we'll extend our retreat one more week. Latest news. Cancel all your commitments. We'll dive into Saranagati. That's a cruel question. On the penultimate day of a retreat to ask that, he's an evil soul. Yeah, a few things, of course, brief few things. How to practice Sharanagati in a healthy, sustainable way. Sharanagati, of course, means the path of taking shelter, basically. Sometimes we translate as surrender. It literally means Sharanagati. Sharana means shelter, like Krishna say, Mamekam Sharanam. Balav Sampradaya will say, Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Krishna is my refuge. Saranagati means the path toward shelter or to take shelter. And as you may know, Jiva Goswami explains there are 6 main. There's one official verse about Saranagati that subdivides Saranagati in 6 angas, or 5 angas actually, and 1 angi. 5 limbs and 1 body, if you will. Like I have the body and these are the limbs. So 5 leg of the cat. Anukulyas sankalpa pratikulyas varjanam rakshishyatiti vishwaso goptritve varanam tata akmaniksheva karpanye shadvira saranagati. So this is the 6-fold expression of saranagati. And there are 5 limbs, but the main core, the angi, anga means limb, and the angi is the possessor of the limbs. So like body and limbs. So the body, the central core of Saranagati is Goptritve Varanam. So I start with that one, though it's not the first on the list, in connection to your question, because you ask how to practice Saranagati in a healthy way. And in my next book, there's a whole chapter about Saranagati in connection to unconditional love. Because the main aspect of Saranagati is Goptritve Varanam, accept that you are being maintained by Krishna. Again, maintain doesn't mean that externally, I mean, also, but first and foremost, and being maintained by his unconditional love. Everything is being maintained by God's love. Everything is being kept up in its orbit by God's unconditional love. So that's a very healthy way to practice Sharanagati, right? To every single day try to enter into this spirit, enter into the central core of Sharanagati and be maintained by the sweet absolute. In the form I'm being seen. Now remember in the scriptures it's described that God with his glance he's creating universes. Now I'm maintaining them. So okay, I'm being seen by his glance of love, I'm being nourished, maintained, accepted. And you have to trust that that's true. And you have to give yourself to that. So all that is surrender also. I surrender to the fact that I'm being unconditionally loved. I surrender to that. Because we have so many voices that do not want to surrender to that fact. We have so many good arguments to show how we are absolutely unlovable. So we need to enter into a daily dialogue with our inner voices about that and finally enter in that sacred space of Goptritve Varanam. Varanam means radical acceptance. Varanam. I accept. I surrender. I'm being maintained. I'm being cared for. I'm being loved. That's the core of Saranagati. And on that foundation come the other angas. Accept what's favorable for your life. Reject what's not favorable. That list may be changing every single day. Accept what's favorable to the angas are in service of the angi. So if the angi is you are being maintained by God's love, then the angas are serving that principle. So accept what's favorable to you, accepting that you are being maintained by unconditional love. Reject what's unfavorable to you, being willing to radically accept that you are being maintained by unconditional love. Rakshishyati vishvaso. Trust that Krishna will protect you. Based on what? On the fact that he's already maintaining me. So if he's already doing that, he will continue doing that because he has been doing that so far. So good. And then karpanya, deep humility. Because I'm realizing I'm being maintained by unconditional love without me doing anything to deserve any of that. That's a fully, utterly gratuitous gift. Unearnable, undeservable. No matter how much I do to deserve it, it's undeservable. You need another language. That brings karpanya, deep sense of humility. So that's one way of speaking about all these limbs of Saranagati, starting with the central core, in connection to the principle of unconditional love, which I think is very healthy, healing, sustainable. Yeah, that's my straightforward answer to your straightforward question. Again, we are summarizing a 7-day retreat on Saranagati here. So it was just probably 7 minutes, 7 days in 7 minutes. Yes.
Possibly kind of following on from that is so we hear that every atom is an embassy, every
what, sorry?
atom is an embassy of the Lord.
Okay.
That he is in everything and everything is in him. And then with Prahlada Maharaj, you know, in the prayers we hear how he's seeing Lord Nrsimhadev everywhere. He's here, he's there, Lord Nrsimhadev. And so I don't know if I can, sorry, I've been trying to, you know, but
maybe this helps.
it's not again, English isn't my first language. Because he is completely absorbed in God's love, he's completely held in that love. He's feeling like he is not feeling, he is experiencing, seeing him everywhere. When he's being thrown off a cliff, when his father turns and says, is he here? You know, is he in this pillar? Is it that he is literally seeing him everywhere? Like, hey, I'm here. Hey. You know, he's literally seeing him everywhere. Or he is so embraced in God's presence that he's everywhere. I don't know if I explained that clearly.
Yeah. But still, it's in one sense, I find it hard to differentiate between the two options you gave.
As I'm speaking, yeah.
Because in one sense, you say, I feel the embrace of someone I love at physical distance. You could say, yeah, that person is literally present. And in one sense, it's there. And sometimes you feel more that presence at distance than in proximity also.
Yeah.
So there are different ways of perceiving someone's presence. Like the classical example in our tradition will be union and separation. Actually, separation is not separation. It's another kind of union. That's why it's called biyoga or viraha. Yoga means union, biyoga means separation. Biyoga also is like the B comes from Vaishishya, which means a special type of union. So separation is you have union and then you have a special type of union known as separation. That's why Sri Maharaj will speak about union and then union in separation. But always the word union is there. Presence, whatever word we want to use. So it just takes different shapes. But still, if the presence there, like when the gopis are in separation from Krishna in the Rasa Leela, and they are seeing Krishna everywhere. Though Krishna, they are in separation, technically speaking, officially, they are in separation from Krishna, but they are seeing him everywhere. Still, they are looking for the one Krishna. That's interesting. Because they're seeing him everywhere in a certain way that is reassuring their search for the one Krishna that is in one place. Because when we say God is everywhere, yes, in certain aspect, but also there is the condensed presence that may manifest in certain places. Still, he's everywhere. Okay, we have to learn to think about that beyond thinking. In a more generic way, God's presence is everywhere. It's permeating every atom, and he can manifest from a pillar, from everywhere. Yeah. But again, as I said the other day, it doesn't mean that you are seeing Krishna popping up from every atom playing the flute. It's like kaleidoscopic revelation, or that Prahlad was having that type of multi multi-darshan, so to say. But it doesn't mean that you are not perceiving God's loving embrace at every moment. No? And that's how it's exactly depicted in the Bhagavad, and especially in those circumstances where Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill him, being thrown through a cliff, given poison to drink, and the main quality that defines Prahlada Maharaja and is repeated over and over in the Bhagavatam is abhayatva. Abhayatva, which means fearlessness. Now, he was fearless not from any, how to say, toxic masculine place. I'm not afraid. He had genuine realization of God's love and presence. He was perceiving that. So there was no reason to be afraid of anything, even in the face of the worst possible dangers. So his abhayatva, his fearlessness, came as a byproduct of his awareness of this loving presence. So again, though we may say he was not literally seeing Bhagavan in shapes popping up every atom, he perceived his presence and his embrace enough to know, I mean, yeah, he's everywhere. And in a situation of whatever, if he needs to appear more specifically, he will do. Like I'm already perceiving him everywhere. So that in itself confirms that if he needs to take a more concrete form for a particular purpose, like he did, he was completely sure. Yeah, of course, that's why he answered to Hiranyakashipu, like, is he there? Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean that he was seeing the form of Nrsimhadev or whatever, but he knew because he was perceiving the presence of that person. Like sometimes, again, going to a limited example, but you can be in a place and perceive someone's presence by their energy, or perceive, oh, someone entered the room, or I'm not alone in the house. A little more scary examples, but you can perceive someone's presence by not seeing them. Now, what to speak of God's presence, who happens to be everywhere, from someone like Prahlad, who happens to be hyper sensitive to that presence. So that's a perfect match. So yeah. And that's the foundation of bhakti, right? Prahlada Maharaja is like the foundation before talking on other forms of bhakti. That's the Sakya Vatsalya Madhur, his Shanta bhakti, which is peacefulness. But that's the peacefulness that comes from being fearful, and that's the fearfulness that comes from knowing of God's presence everywhere, and knowing of God's unconditional love everywhere. And that's why Prahlada Maharaj also famously prayed to Nrsimhadev, I want to be liberated myself alone. I want to stay here and save all these people. So his realization of God's universal love gave rise in him to universal compassion, because he knew there's universal compassion coming from Krishna, including me, and therefore I want to participate in that. So when Nrsimhadev is offering all these things, and you want this liberation, you want this, what do you want? I want to give you a blessing. I want to give you a blessing. And Prahlad says, did you see me? Did you see my face? Like I have like a face of a mercantile face? No? Like I'm trying to do business with you? No, I don't want anything.
Eddie Hillesum also.
Sorry?
Eddie Hillesum also. Eddie Hillesum could have not gone to the camps.
Eddie Hillesum, okay. Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh, why not to go there? What's the difference? The difference that that's a concentration camp. Well, yes and no. Not for her. I mean, she was not stupid to know where she was going, but at the same time, there was a higher consideration. It's a concentration camp, but there's so much more happening. So yeah, for Prahlad the same, right? Yeah, this going on here, this going on there, but yeah, daddy gave me poison today for breakfast. Hiranyakashipu, right? It's okay, no problem. There's much to the story about this. Much more. And again, of course, again, these are like extreme stories in the sense this is a 7-year-old boy whose father wants to kill him in so many ways that will appear in all the news. Father giving the child poison, throwing him on a cliff, and on top of that, the child survives each one of those. And then finally, the father is killed, and they go to the children. What the children says, oh, he's praying for his father. That was Prahlada Maharaja, right? Because Nrsimha had to say, I want to give you a blessing, I want to give you a blessing. She finally said, okay. After saying no so many times, okay, please bless my father. He didn't say anything for him. Oh, please. Oh, the person who wanted to kill him just a few minutes ago repeated times. So again, universal compassion. Love your enemies. Embodied there. There are no enemies. He realized there are no enemies. That's why he's fearless again. You become fearless when you realize there are no enemies. And that's why you are at peace. Again, Shanta. Shanta Rasa is all about being at peace, and peace is important. It's foundation, preliminary foundation for happiness, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He says, how can you be happy if you are not at peace? So first, women need to strive for some degree of, again, balance in our life, sattva, shanti. Not because that's everything, because that's not everything, but if we strive for happiness without peace, who knows what we will end up doing. Rameshwar, you were raising your hand?
I'm following on from Ravindra's question.
Okay.
Let's see if I can formulate it as well. There's also a question I already had. But you were saying if someone's sincere, then they'll find their way to God. And then just putting that with what we said the other morning when we started the seminar, and you were saying that in order to appreciate the different traditions, going more deeply into our own. And it came up again in the podcast last night, that maybe not in order to, but as much as we want to deeply appreciate the other traditions, we want to dive more deeply into our own. And that was said again in the podcast last night. So what exactly is the question?
That's a good question.
So for someone that doesn't really want to, who out of choice doesn't really want to subscribe to a particular tradition and just wants to communicate, sincerely with God through prayer, through the heart, and they don't want to belong to a different tradition because there's like all these rules and regulations or dysfunction or bad experiences.
Which is not the tradition.
No. So again,
just to clarify.
Right. Will that hamper them? I guess that's part of the question, that they don't actually subscribe to one tradition, because then we hear, like from the Verna retreat, you were looking at the lives of different Christian saints who kind of did it very much their own way, and they didn't follow even in the footsteps completely of the Franciscan order. They did it their way. And then that podcast with Harry Parshad, and he was talking about there's general ways that we do things, but there's examples of devotees who weren't part of any of the four sampradayas, and I give examples of Mukta and Jaidev Goswami, and they had a guru, but they weren't part of any lineage. And then one more thing is, Hari Prashad, he was saying, if you want to go into Bhakti, then you've got to take a Shiksha guru who will show you the way. That seems very set. This is how you do it. So the question is kind of about,
Again, 3 questions in one.
Yeah. Like, if you don't want to follow a particular tradition, is that going to hamper you? If you do follow a particular tradition, it seems like you can sort of, to some extent, have room for doing it your own way, and that there's always exceptions, and how much are things kind of like not actually set formulaic, that yes, you have to have a guru, or like people who manage to do it without a guru. Those kind of questions.
Do some magic, Maharaj. Now, Manis. Do the editing. Yeah. So, yeah, there are a few considerations there, of course. And I cannot give one answer because different people is in different situations, and some people need to be in a situation with no particular affiliation to any lineage. There's even currents nowadays called, we were talking the other day with someone, called interspirituality, where people will define themselves as being members of more than one tradition, and they don't want to limit themselves to just one. Though I will say that in general, those practitioners and in general tend to conclude more on an impersonal idea. So somehow it's more like, okay, I take here, here, and here, and at the end it's all one. So in that case, it's a little different from a tradition like ours or other traditions who are more specific in something, like we were talking today, something very particular that we wouldn't know without being parts of a tradition. And so I think there is a big, I'm not saying that, again, dogmatically, you need to subscribe to a tradition, because if not, nothing will come, because I'm not saying that. But I was, again, it's personal, but if someone comes and say, I don't want to be part of any tradition, my main question will be why? Because maybe sometime big part the answer may be no, because all these religions have this history of abuse and rules and dogma and blah 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 blah. Okay, fair enough. We are not here to deny any of that. Right? We want to critique traditions objectively, but none of that is the essence of any of the traditions. So if you don't want to participate in a particular school because of that, then that already begins with a misreading of the whole thing. We are throwing the baby away with the bathwater. So in that case, I will emphasize, try to understand that, and you may have, not you, but whomever, trauma or things that you got, religious PTSD of sorts, and you may need to sort those sorts out before feeling like, okay, I can see myself as part of a tradition. Because again, you may have had such a terrible, horrifying experience that the natural response first is like, I don't want anything to do with any of this. And there's a place for that, understandably. But again, it may be one extreme of the pendulum going to the other. And at one point, hopefully you can understand, oh, there is a healthy way to be part of a lineage and again, of getting the benefit of that, being part of a lineage of thousands of years with so many saints and so much revelation that can be of so much advantage, rather than, okay, I'll start myself from scratch all on my own. That's a little bit more complicated, to be honest, right? Let's be honest. So I think there are good reasons to be part of a tradition. Again, and I'm not talking here about institutionally. Being part of a tradition is not something institutional. I'm not anti-institutional. I'm trans-institutional. There are institutions that have their value, but they are just have limited value. At the end of the day, I mean, institutions are just a recent phenomena, right? I mean, Thakur's time, even before, there were no institutions. Nobody will ask anyone, which mission are you from? There were no missions. It was like connection, parampara, lineage, or teachers, traditions. So that on one side, I will say. At the same time, if someone says, I'm not in any tradition and I'm picking a little bit from here and there, in one sense, you are taking from traditions, right? In one sense, it's like you cannot escape from that. Of course, I'm sure there's people who say, I won't take from any tradition, I will make my own tradition. Still, you're part of a tradition. The one you are inventing, which probably will be a cult or something in many cases. Yeah. So in general, this is like a general answer. I'm not talking personally to anyone here. If not, that will be more tailor-made. At the same time, yeah, there are exceptions to the rules. That some examples that we've heard of people having no guru or having no particular affiliation, and that's interesting unto itself, because that shows that, yeah, there are different ways in which sometimes grace may come, which is not the official, the typical way, which may work for most, but that doesn't cancel the exception to the rule. That the rule works for most and great, but there is something called exceptions to the rule, and they are equally valid. That they are an exception is not they're worse, nor that they are better. It's just what it is. I mean, I speak from personal testimony, living testimony. I'm kind of an exception to the rule. Not, and again, not because I'm better than anyone. Just like I'm in a particular awkward situation. Not awkward in a bad way, but it's liminal. It's not the typical thing. Oh, you're in this. I was in a more typical situation. I'm no longer there. And it's what it is, and it's beautiful in its own way. And it's the awkwardness. And again, but I'm not here saying everyone should be there, because it's not that I even chosen to be here. So it's just, it happened. So my point is, sometimes there are dynamics like that which go outside of the normal, and still there can be something true happening. Not to, I would say, reassess my case, but to say, yeah, I cannot deny that something true is happening. I cannot deny it. It will be false humility to say, no, this is all delusional. This is absolutely, completely self-deception. No. So, but yeah, in general, the rule is, again, if you want to know God, yeah, its general recommendation is look for those who are closer to God, who live their lives accordingly. That, I mean, it's like basic common sense. You want Raganuga Bhakti, to be more specific, to go to the example you mentioned. Okay, you may need someone to even first. I mean, if you want Raganuga Bhakti first, it means you learn that there's something called Raganuga Bhakti, and you learn that from someone. I don't think you would just walk out and say, I want Raganuga. And then you self-define Raganuga Bhakti to yourself. So it doesn't happen that way. So the very fact that someone say, I want Raganuga Bhakti, means you learn about that from someone. No? Like sometimes people quote, no, but Krishnamurti, people like Krishnamurti, which I read a lot in my teenage years, he will say that you don't need a guru, no guide, no. But by him saying that, he was acting as a guru to them. So it's inescapable. Not in a codependent way. I'm not saying that in an institutionally codependent way, but in like a natural aspect of reality. So whether it's in one institution or not, this lineage, sometimes some of these details may vary, but in general, the principle is that, yeah, it's important to have some guidance, and probably you get some guidance, and that makes you identify with a particular tradition or teaching, but that doesn't mean that you can learn from others and be benefited from them. Again, there are varieties, no? And I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's a few options in the menu. I personally feel, yeah, it's healthy to be identified with a tradition. It gives some certainty in a healthy way, like some identity, some anchor, some center, but in a natural way, not like, okay, I have to identify with one tradition. That's something like really, it's irresistible. That's how it should be. But that doesn't cancel learning from every other, because they are sister traditions. And you can feel more close to some or the other, and again, you can have beautiful experiences in which, again, if you have like a deep affinity for Mahaprabhu and Jesus, some cases, maybe there, and you can have beautiful confirmations that one is accompanying you along with the other, and it's not like, well, at one point I have to decide and cut ties with one of these two guys. Right? So there are ways to integrate the things coherently. Yes, there are ways to not do that. Also, that requires some nuance and some sincerity. I mean, even if it's not about here, but about having a sincere desire and longing to hold space for, if that's the case. Now, I like to hold space for those of these figures in my life, so to say. And if there's a sincere longing from a good heart, that the spaciousness is invoked. Right? And there's not necessarily a conflict there. But yeah, there are also exceptions to the rule about affiliation, and there are not only 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, also, just in case. There are more than that. That's another conversation. There's one verse that generally is just a footnote, but the verse that is generally quoted from the Padma Purana, Sampradaya Vihinasti Chenis Phala Mata. If you don't receive mantra from one of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, the mantra is useless. That said, there has been recently discovered that verse has been an interpolation, so it does not exist in the Padma. And therefore, there are not only 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. And again, there can be new Vaishnava Sampradayas if they are genuinely inspired and genuinely explained and presented. It's not like these are the only ones and there is nothing else. Because there are some also groups, like, for example, traditionalism. I did a podcast some months ago, years ago, and one representative of them, and their views is, for example, very open. Okay, all these the main religions of the world, they represent God and the truth. But also some of them think, but there is no space for further revelation in the future. No? All has been revealed by these main traditions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism. There will be there is no. And I disagree with that. Why? So there is a place for someone to say, okay, new Vaishnava Sampradaya, which this particular, of course, it has to be properly explained. I won't take, if you tell, I mean, I know people who say we are new Vaishnava Sampradaya, and personally, that's Hapa Sampradaya, for this or that reason. No? There has to be properly justified and explained, and traditionally you have to write your own commentary to Vedanta Sutra, to Upanishad, Gita, explaining your particular Siddhanta, which is different enough from the other Vaishnava Sampradaya for it to be considered another Sampradaya. Yeah, there are more than 4, just in case. I don't know if something helped from all that. Yeah.
Really good.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry?
I will stay.
And there's a very interesting phenomenon in that connection, of course, that sometimes I've seen, at least start speaking from the Gaudiya lineage, some particular communities within the Gaudiya lineage, that some people have 2 things at the same time. One side, a very strong emphasis on this particular institution of the Gaudiya lineage is the best one and the only possible one, and you should never leave this. At the same time, they are receiving, in that same framework, some, not all, lots of trauma. So at one point, they reach a point where they say, I cannot continue here. But since the idea that this is the only real possible place to stay as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, that was so ingrained in them, so they live Gaudiya Vaishnavism altogether. Because all the other groups cannot be conceived as possible, because already they have been indoctrinated as shown as evil. So this is the only possible one, and it's driving me crazy. So I become a Buddhist or whomever, without criticizing other traditions. I'm just saying that's also an interesting phenomenon that I've observed many times. Now, how in that burnout, they do not consider that possibly in other, not even other missions, but other communities, even in the same mission, things may be more healthy. No, it's just this whole Gaudiya thing is my experience of it, which is like that's your part that you have to change in the journey. You cannot blame upon the whole tradition. I'm not taking that accusation, right? So we have to grow beyond that, because it's like, again, if it's not, it's all about me and my experience. Like, so I had this trauma here, so everything else is equal because I have this experience. I don't know. A man hurt me, all men are bad. A woman hurt me, all women are. This mission hurt me, all this tradition is the same crap, so to say. And actually, in all of them things, there's something genuine. Yes, as we speak in radical personalism, we want to remain. If we would choose to remain Gaudiya Vaishnavas, hopefully it's for the right reasons. No, we don't want to remain Gaudiya Vaishnava for the wrong reasons, because you can stay for the wrong reasons, you can stay for the right reasons. You choose, because sometimes the external views. Oh no, they are staying. They are there. Which is the reason? Which is the motivation? For some of them, it may be healthier, not to say to leave, but maybe at least to take a distance and reboot the system and return with a fresh eye, than remain with a very calcified perspective that gets worse and worse over the years. But I remain, and somehow Krishna will take me back to Godhead at the end of my life. Not from that place. If you don't choose that, of course. Okay. Something else before sharing to rest, Radhapriya?
To ask you about compassion. And it does relate to what we've just been speaking about. Passion might be often connected to the particular individual's idea of how others are supposed to be. And if they're not within that idea, then there's compassion for them. So sometimes compassion is kind of looking down on people and feels disrespectful in a way. So I'd like to explore the difference between compassion, care, and love. I think you understand. I don't want it's respect may be lost in certain ways of thinking that, everyone who's not following what I think they ought to be, then I have compassion, so it's kind of something different.
Yeah, what immediately comes to mind, thank you. So the question, I'm briefly repeating because I'm recording here and I don't think the microphone is catching the question. It's about compassion and how sometimes compassion can be expressed in ways that are not respectful or are looking down on the other person or creating some superiority complex, some toxic hierarchy. And in that context, you're asking to explore that and the connection of compassion with love and care. So yeah, a few words as we may not have again. We need another 7 day, 2 more weeks. Saranagati first week. Compassion. And tomorrow morning also we'll be talking about compassion, by the way, just in case. I'll say something now, but the verse of tomorrow morning will include one line of that. But yeah, that can happen, right? I mean that's not compassion if that happens. The first thing that came to my mind when you were asking the question is the very meaning of compassion. she's suffering with. So the with creates some kind of like equality. I'm suffering with you. That's what compassion means. Passion, like the passion of Christ. Passion means suffering. And means with. So suffering with means for me to suffer with you. I mean, for me to connect, I have to be on your terms. I have to be empathy, and we have to be one-on-one. I cannot be from here like, oh, poor boy, poor guy, poor little thing. That's not compassion. Still, there is a marked hierarchy there.
Pity.
Yeah, pity. That's the word that sometimes they use in English. No? Taking pity or feeling pity is hierarchical. And again, many times in the name of compassion, we can quote unquote be compassionate, but be reinforcing a hierarchy. Okay, let's go to the street and feed the poor or the homeless. It's compassion. But maybe you do it from a place that you feel I'm being the giver and you're the one who depends on me, and I'm making you a favor, whatever. So many things can happen rather than entering the experience of the other, because suffering with compassion means that's not easy. It's comparatively more easy, of course, to take pity or to do some external favor and feel better than others or feel good with myself, but to enter into the other person's pain and entering and staying there, right? It's not like entering like oof and running away. Like compassion lasts for 1 nanosecond, but trying to be willing to enter there, stay there, accompany there, suffer with them. Oh, that's powerful. That's intense. That's beautiful. That's love. Again, that's an expression of love. That's one of the many facets of this multi-faceted jewel called love, compassion. And care comes as a natural extension of that. But first, I need to connect with your suffering to provide the care that is corresponding to what makes you suffer. Because if not, I'm already having my own agenda of what you need, how to provide care, how to help you, what's your suffering about. No, sometimes we already have all these assumptions that I already what you are suffering for. And we can be very reductionistic, and you're suffering because of you are not a devotee. You don't know my God. If you just do this suffering is gone. So here's the prescription. Okay, I'm being compassionate. Next one. That's that's again going back to Prahlada Maharaja and him praying. I don't want to be liberated myself. I'm seeing all these people suffering. I want to stay here with them and suffer with them. And then he comes again in Gaur Leela's Vasudev Dutt, and he's saying, "Oh Krishna, give me the karma of all living entities, and I stay suffering." He in this case is not interesting. He's not saying so suffering with them, but suffering for them. No? Which again it's an ecstatic expression. It's not possible in practice, but it's a way of saying I'm so much connected with what they are suffering, how much they are suffering. Bring all that to me and please liberate them. So again, that's the willingness to enter into the wound of the other person. And again, that's not everyone can do that. You need to be prepared to enter the wound, because it can be scary. It can be to enter your own suffering and pain. It can be terrifying. What to speak of developing and how to say a sadhana of a lifestyle of visiting other people's wounds in a healing way, and because also you can enter other people's wounds and create a bigger wound without bad intention, even just without being expert enough and know what to do with that wound, what to do with that pain, what to do with that vulnerability, and you made that person feel abused without you wanted to do that. So yeah, compassion there are different degrees of compassion, but it all begins with the willingness to, how to say, to, as we say yesterday, right? In which context we were talking about that? The willingness. We were talking about respect, and maybe it was the day before yesterday. Look anew, which was like, I don't remember the exact words we used, but like not take the first not judging the other person by our first assumption.
Look again.
Yeah. But the point is, yeah, we tend to do that. So compassion is, in order to be compassionate, I cannot do that. I have to respect you first. In other words, means I have to set aside my views, my ideas, my assumptions about what must be going on, how to heal. Set it aside and be willing to enter into the experience. And only then, okay, I may show care in this way or in another, and all of which is a form of love. But first, there has to be the willingness to decentralize my own experience. Because if I come already with, this is my experience and I don't want to be changed by your pain, then you cannot be compassionate. Because compassion means I enter your suffering with the willingness that your suffering will transform me. I will live transformed from that experience for good. But if I'm not willing to be transformed in any way, that prevents me from being compassionate. Because entering the pain of another is transforming. So it requires courage. It's an intense moment. It's a beautiful moment. It's an expression of love. So again, as we say, yes, that love is the thing we need the most. Love is the thing we fear the most. Compassion is an expression of love, which is as beautiful as terrifying for some, because it's so transforming, so necessary. So it's a gradual training into learning to enter into those spaces, learning to enter into each other's hearts without leaving the hearts worse than they were before our entering, trying to make a positive contribution to each one's heart. And it's a delicate cultivation, daily cultivation. Yeah.
Don't enter with our shoes on.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's an important point to know that in the name of compassion, there can happen so much lack of respect can happen, so much distancing can happen, so much bypassing can happen, like inoculation. Like I inoculate myself in the name of compassion so I don't have to change, I don't have to be touched by your experience of suffering. Because of course, many times when we enter in connection with someone else's suffering, that also makes us aware of our own suffering. Sometimes we don't want to see that. We don't want mirrors that reflect back. But also at the same time, that shows us how interconnected we are. So it's very necessary. So yeah, it's important not to weaponize this noble expressions of love, not to use compassion, not to be compassionate. Or as we were talking before, surrender. You can use the word surrender, weaponize surrender in so many ways to not surrender. To do the exact opposite of it. You can use the word spiritual life exactly not to practice spiritual life. It becomes the best excuse. You use the, let's say, the outer form of spiritual life to avoid the inner substance of spiritual life. You invoke the outer mask of surrender, and you're like, oh, you have surrendered. And actually, it's just a carnival. You're with a mask, and you're just like making some parade. Well, when truth knocks on your door, you're like, I want to open that door. In the same way, with compassion, we can weaponize compassion and embrace the outer, created an outer shell of it, so we don't have to actually be compassionate, which means entering in direct conversation with pain and all that it can bring. Again, pain is not a bad word. Wound is not a bad word. Grief is not a bad word, as we've been talking for a long time already. So yeah, it's important that we keep some clarity in this, so we don't use these most noble ideals to deceive ourselves, deceive others, and to end up doing the exact opposite of what those ideals represent. Because again, those are the things that now then take people to say, I don't want anything to do with that religious people. Like we were talking yesterday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses this word also, Dharma Dwaji, the Dharma flag bearers. I'm for compassion and surrender and spirituality. You move the flag, but when you are calling to action, you continue moving the flag. So nice to move this. Embody the flag, please. Walk the flag. Walk your talk. Some people just want to show up with the sign, with the flag, which is, I'm not saying that's bad, no, but then you will be called to embody that the flag is a symbol of something that needs to be embodied. So, few words, I hope that helps. Yeah, that's the first thing that came. Yeah. Tomorrow we will be talking about that more. Beautiful verse from Ujjwal Nilamani from Rupa Goswami, depicting some attributes of Krishna in terms of gratitude, tolerance, and compassion. And yeah, Paraduka Duki will come there. Okay, we can put, I think, this sharing to rest for today. But before leaving the sofa and everything, also I want to invite Radha Priya to do kirtan. And we can share to close the meeting with some little kirtan. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Premanand.